28 years later, the latest film in this trilogy now, following 28 days, 28 weeks. Now, it's been about 2 decades since this franchise was pumping out films, but this film sees the return of director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland, which is kind of interesting to think about that there are cinephiles out there, letterbox users, who might be more familiar with Alex Garland's work at this point, which sounds like an insane thing to say, especially considering that Danny Boyle is an Academy Award-winning director. But it mostly just speaks to the output that they have had in the past few years, where Alex Garland has had 4 films since 2018, and since that time, this is Danny Boyle's only second film. And let's not pretend like his last film yesterday was anything to report back on. But this film sees the return of this powerful duo, picking up nearly 3 decades after where the story left off. And I gotta say, this film is pretty great for a lot of reasons. I think the biggest thing about this film is it really does subvert a lot of expectations you might have of where this franchise is going. This is a much quieter film, especially compared to the previous 2, really focusing on these individual stories rather than the larger world at hand. Now, there certainly are a lot of world-building elements within this film, mostly explained through passing dialogue, brief mentions of the outside world and where the world has kind of gone within the past 3 decades, but this is a really grounded story, and I think that's what makes it feel so special. The themes that this film is most interested in is the idea of what happens when the world leaves you behind. This is a world where zombies are real. There is a virus that is out there, and the world has essentially contained it to a limited space. And because of that limitation, putting all these people in quarantine, the rest of the world has pretty much moved on. Now, in a lot of his press leading up to this, Danny Boyle has expressed that Brexit was very heavily on his mind while making this film, and you can certainly feel that in the tone. These people who are stuck in this zombie-infested country feel abandoned. They feel like they are isolated from the rest of the world. And I certainly think watching this in a post-COVID world, there are a lot of ideas that are made prevalent, although this film isn't speaking directly to that. And similar to the way that 28 Days Later, which premiered in 2002, felt very much in this post 9/11 world, this also feels like a very special time in history for a return to this franchise. And so I really do think that this was the best direction to go in, to tell this simplistic story, focusing on death and isolation, and honestly, more than anything, this film celebrates life. Life for the people who have survived this apocalypse, but also life for the people that they have lost who have turned into essentially zombies. It's a fascinating look on life and death and how these people are dealing with these things, while also still being a really good zombie film. Because don't get me wrong, this thing is just as gory and if anything more vicious than the previous entries, and I think part of that is due to the evolution in technology, where things can just look much more real than they could back in 2002. And so in my opinion, this film delivers the best of both worlds, where you get a really good zombie flick, but also this deep, heartfelt message. Now, the names and faces that you will recognize in this film are Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Ralph Fiennes, but really the star of this film is Alfie Williams, who is a newcomer, and I gotta say, the risk they took in this young actor really paid off. He essentially has no film credits to his name, and we have seen countless films make the mistake of casting the wrong person to lead their franchise. And I don't think that's a mistake this film made, because this kid absolutely kills the part. And it's worth noting that this film is essentially planned to launch a new trilogy. The second film has already been shot, and it is set to be released this January, and the third already has the script written. And you can definitely feel elements of that within this film, where there are certain characters or ideas introduced that feel more like a setup and not so much complete within this film alone. But I didn't feel as if that hurt the film too much. I think there is a tone shift, especially within the end of this film, that feels a little bit jarring. And I didn't dislike it, and I appreciate it for what it is, but I am curious to see how the next film makes me relook at that scene. The most unique element about this film, though, I think is the editing style and camera work. Now, one of the most iconic elements about the original 28 Days Later is that it was shot on a digital camera, and it doesn't really hold up all that well. I don't have too many issues with it, and in fact, I think it does serve some purpose of giving it a very unique aesthetic to the look of it, but you can definitely tell it is a product of its time. And so in a way to pay tribute to this also uses very unique filming styles. And one of those creative decisions is that most of this film was filmed on an iPhone 15. And I gotta say, it does look pretty good, even though you can tell it's not the typical cameras they would use in an action film like this. But on top of that, there's also a lot of distinct editing styles this film utilizes, specifically in the action scenes. There's almost these freeze frames or still shots that are mixed in with the moving camera angles, and it takes a moment to get used to it, and I think people are either gonna love it or really dislike it. But for me, I was just enjoying seeing this very distinct decision that I've never really seen on a movie before, and I think those decisions are a product of this being an auteur that is returning to this franchise. Danny Boyle is certainly someone who knows how to direct a film, and while I have mixed feelings on a lot of Alex Garland films, he is a great writer, and I think this film accomplished exactly what it needed to do. It reignited a franchise, hopefully gaining new fans to it, and sparked my curiosity for where they're going to go next within this series. So overall, I had a great time, but I would love to hear your thoughts if you have seen the film. So if you've seen it, please comment below, and I will see you next time.